Hi everyone, Anthony Bontano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Logic album, Vinyl Days. This is a new record from the hardest working retiree in show business, Robert Bryson Hall II, aka Logic, out now with his first official album, not mixtape, since the release of what was supposed to be his final album, No Pressure, in 2020. But the retirement that he announced with that project was short-lived. We got his Bobby Tarantino 3 tape, I believe, like the next year, and he made it clear we were about to get another project this past spring with the release of singles like Tetris and Vinyl Days, Therapy Music, all of which pointed in a much more old school and much less commercial direction for Logic's sound, something more in touch with the vintage boom bap and jazz rap that's always inspired his stuff. It's just cool to see him embrace because it's easy to tell there's something about this style or operating in this lane that speaks to Logic's soul, much more than playing catch up with whatever pop rap trends are operating right now. In a recent interview I did with him for this project, he said he really hunkered down with the beat machine on this one, and you can tell, sampling records endlessly to assemble the instrumentals on this thing. It just seems like over the past decade, Logic has put in the work, he has rode successfully his commercial wave of success. He probably could push for more if he wanted to, but I think more or less he has gotten his fill of that, and instead he is trying to give himself the ability to just create whatever he wants freely, which sort of makes Vinyl Days a new chapter in Logic's discography, also a send-off too, as I guess this is supposed to be his final project for Def Jam Records. He does spend a fair bit of this project saying goodbye to the label and his associations with it, especially on the 10-minute closer where he's mentioning multiple people from the label by name. And I think this LP is also a marker of Logic's emotional evolution too, which we got a fair dose of on No Pressure, about how becoming a dad changed his perspective, his growing disillusionment with the rap rat race and the music industry at large. But there's an energy that replaces that on Vinyl Days, and it is, I don't give a fuck. Or at least that's the idea that Logic wants us to get. Because when I listen to this project and when I talk to Logic in an interview, it's very clear that he still does care. He cares about hip-hop, he cares about his craft, and also what other people think a little bit. A tiny bit. I think he is a sensitive boy at heart, and that's cool. But I think this project does show he's definitely on a path where he's not allowing the numbers or industry pressures or negative opinions to impact him or paralyze him to where it keeps him from doing what he wants to do. He's sort of on a healing journey, and maybe this project is another step in the ongoing saga of that. But ultimately, with this project, is the quality there? Is it a good record to listen to? That's the real question. And yeah, I think so. I think Vinyl Days has turned out to be one of Logic's better releases, even if it is a little all over the place. This thing is 30 tracks long, it runs an hour and 12 minutes. There are loads of interludes and transitional moments along its runtime, lots of moments where celebrity voices from Aaron Judge and Rainn Wilson are in the mix, just voice note recordings catching these people in really honest and unfiltered moments, like on the track Lena's Insight, where we hear some spare comments from actress Lena Waithe that she specifies are not for his album. This is also how yours truly ended up on this project as well, with the track Needle Drop, where Logic had asked me to send him a voice note because he had other people like Rainn Wilson contributing voice notes to this project, and I sent him one just asking like, what's the deal with this? What's the story behind it? Is there like a theme? Is there an idea? And then Logic responded to that voice note saying, can I use this? Which, like, okay, it's just me rambling, but if you think it's necessary for your record, I suppose. But now, after having heard the whole thing, I guess I get it. Are the detours and interludes on this record a little heavy-handed? Yes, I think they are. But still, it does add to the record's overall randomness, the feel that it's like a grimy underground mixtape. There are even a bunch of funk flex drops throughout this project where he's just screaming his brains out in order to keep the energy of this thing high. Almost like he's commenting at the end or in the middle of some kind of like on-air freestyle, which does fit because a lot of the core songs on this thing are pretty short, not super belabored in terms of structure. Vinyl Days is more about a focus on the beats, the bars, the lyrical focus of some of these tracks, the guests too. Like, if you want more insight into the vibe of this record, there is a track on here titled Quasi, where Logic essentially begs, lyrically, for a legendary producer Madlib to start rapping, not just as maybe his alter ego Quasimodo, but just in general, which is something he hasn't done in quite some time. And yeah, Madlib, the golden age of Stone's Throw Records, Jay Dilla, who gets quite a few mentions on this project, their DNA creatively is deeply embedded into this project. While Logic's interpretation of this sound isn't quite as loose and abstract and wild, those trademark Jay Dilla rhythms are tough to nail down. But still, on this record, I think Logic proves himself to once again be a great musical emulator and a fan first. Whether that be on the song Bleed It, which is just pure Beastie Boys worship to the point where it just kind of makes me want to listen to the Beastie Boys. I mean, he's sampling them and biting the writing style and biting the flows and even the use of vocal distortion and echo. It's a lot. There's also the track Porta 1, which is just such an unashamed Wu-Tang ripoff that you have to have a Wu-Tang member on this freaking track to justify it. Otherwise, it would just be ridiculous. But there are plenty of other tracks here where Logic is playing to his strengths and sounding like himself, even if he is operating within a well-traveled lane, whether that be on the song Tetris with its glossy tones, chunky beats, and dusty vocal chops. It's truly some classic sounding shit. And on top of that, of course, we have nothing but slick, rapid-fire rhymes from Bobby, sounding even hungrier than he did on the highlights from No Pressure. The chemistry with Action Bronson on In My Lifetime is great. Then he mellows things out on the song Decades with a very snappy and quality sung hook, and bars that bring a lot of appreciation for the life that he lives and everything that's brought him to this point. All these tracks come together and contribute to a very strong first leg for Vinyl Days, but things do get a little choppy from here. Black White Boy, for example, brings one of the most skilled performances from Logic from a flow perspective. There are even points where he sounds like Talib Kweli during peaks in his career. Plus, this track features one of the most explosive beats on this project too, but by that same token, it's very clear from the anger Bobby is expressing on this record that there is something about the negativity that he has dealt with in his past that still kind of gets to him. He even tosses an F slur into his verse toward the end of the track. Yeah, it just kind of gives the finishing moments of this song a sour taste that doesn't make me want to kind of come back to it all too soon. From here we have Quasi with that passionate hero worship I mentioned, Bleed It that I also brought up earlier, and then there's La Donda, which I can't skip this one. First off, this track does have a cute-ass beat, that's for sure, with all the samples of phones ringing and calls of hello. The punchy beats and chords are really colorful, I love it. The first half kicks off with a great flow. There's also something about Logic's voice on this song. It sounds a little bit deeper. He's just sounding more authoritative than he was during many moments on No Pressure. But then comes in a whole diatribe about me on the song, and he's laughing as he's kicking it off, so I imagine there is a note of this being sort of cheeky, but at the same time he is talking about fantasizing about wanting to kill me at some point in his life. Also mentioning my fans as fuckboy minions, which I think is a little much. You know, if you want to make it about me, that's fine, but it's not like my fan base is the sole source of hatred for you on the internet. Then he goes on to talk about this revelation that came as a result of talking to me on the phone in 2020, just essentially telling him some basic shit that I've told other artists too, like, it's not personal, it's just my opinion. It shouldn't stop you from doing what is essentially your passion. It's not that deep. It's just not that deep. It wasn't that deep when the reviews were negative and we had never discussed or talked about anything. And it wasn't that deep after I said, hey, you know, they're just opinions, man. So yeah, personally, it is a bit much. And as a result of the focus on me here, do I have a hard time listening to this track? Yeah, a little bit. I can't exactly vibe to it. I mean, wouldn't it be weird if I could? Yeah, I love this song all about me. Flow-wise, this is not the smoothest part of the record either anyway. Like, you said a thing that solidified me to stone. It's not that great of a bar too. But at least Logic ties up the back end of this track, kind of painting himself as somebody who came up as a fan and somehow turned his passion and his talent and his fandom into a career as an artist, which does highlight pretty much why he would, you know, have a hard time digesting criticism. Because yeah, he did come up looking up to a lot of the people who then started to shit on him. And as someone who also turned his fandom into a profession, I guess I can sort of relate. Woo! The track Therapy Music hits a lot of the same thematic notes, with Logic and Russ coming together to spit about how things like anxiety and a need for validation in the music industry have impacted them mentally and emotionally. It's a great, emotive, and contemplative track. Moving past the halfway point here, the vibes and song qualities vary a bit. The song Rogue One is a total banger and sounds like something House of Pain would do back in the 90s. Solid performance from Logic, but I think this is one of the few moments here where the brevity of these tracks work against them a little bit. It doesn't so much feel like a song as much as it is like a loose freestyle. The casual feel of Breath Control also leaves more to be desired, as Wiz Khalifa saunters into the first leg of the track, sounding pretty low energy. It's pretty night and day how on point and just laser focused Logic is in the second half of the track. Thankfully, the features on this thing pick up on the back end. KICKSTYLE is a big posse cut featuring multiple members of Logic's Rat Pack crew. J Mars, Lenbo, C. Castro, all breathlessly rapid fire rippity rip rap spitting. It's not reinventing the wheel or anything, but it has a great energy to it. There's not a single weak link in the chain of verses here. Then 10 Years has a great guest performance from Royce da 5'9" on it, and he is in rare form on this track. His alliteration, his rhyme scheme, the rhythms, the stainless Mac tin clip attachment fit the frame of this Uzi. Just can't imagine it in the act of shit to drain this jacuzzi. There's so many words and so many consistent consonants in his rhymes on his verse. It's just mind-blowing that he just rattles it off so effortlessly. Plus, the boom bap beats and woozy samples make for a great combo on the production side too. Then, introducing Nezzie sees Logic showcasing an up-and-coming rapper who goes by the name Nezzie, who he mentioned finding on TikTok, and yeah, I mean, incredible find. I'm glad he showcased her here because she's fantastic. Really kind of sounds like a mix of Missy and Busta, but with her own style in there as well. And Logic, like a man after my own heart, got Like, Blue, and Exile stacked up on the track Orville. The heads are going to go crazy for sure to hear the AZ verse on this record too. And I guess I love it with the Game. While I am happy to see him in the mix on this project, sort of like the Wiz cut, his performance doesn't exactly make for a fiery intro. Plus, the momentum he builds up feels like it's essentially for nothing as Logic kind of rockets off into this whole diatribe about how he had to come to realize why he's still rapping, even despite the toxicity associated with the industry, the fame, the fact that he retired, and yeah, essentially coming to the conclusion that he just loves it. He has to do it because he loves it, which I think is a decent personal sentiment to end on. Sayonara, that I mentioned earlier, is the 10-minute closing track that is, just a big fat goodbye to Def Jam Records, where Logic goes at length thanking all of the people who helped make his career and success possible. Yeah, it is long-winded, but it does come off genuinely sweet, and past this point we have an extended outro of spoken word from his buddy Egon, essentially waxing poetic about the current state of hip-hop and how we need people like Logic to carry the torch and keep certain sounds and vibes and energies alive, which, is I think a little self-centered, sure, but point taken, and I do understand this project does come from a place of passion for a certain sound and era in this genre, so sure. I think Vinyl Days is another very good, very solid project from Logic, I would say about on par with No Pressure, but for very different reasons. I mean, that album was focused, it was very cleanly produced, it kind of gave you a bit of a deep dive into Logic's psyche at that point in his career, whereas this new album, there is some of that for sure, but for the most part, this record is, really a love letter to hip-hop. It's really an expression of admiration for certain artists and sounds and eras and styles, with great beats and verses and features all around. And of course, it being a Logic record where he wants to kind of let loose and define his own path and just kind of really do his own thing without getting too much in his head. There are some spots on here that are just for fun, that are a little silly, a little tongue-in-cheek, maybe slightly corny. He does indulge on this project as well to the point where it's kind of bloated too. But still, I do think this is a quality project from Logic, and from here I hope we continue to see this this personal and creative growth that he's been showcasing. I'm feeling a light to decent 7 on this record. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Logic forever.